We are back. We are back. Bud, what's up?
I'm here. I'm ready. How
Week
you doing?
three. Week three is down. I think we've had a lot of heart attacks over the last couple of days. But
Oh man, it was it
there's
was
no
a
crying in fantasy is back. I am back. I apologize for my absence last week. Um, we've had a lot going on, but we are back this week to talk fantasy football, to talk about everything that is going on in the NFL. How are you doing in your leagues, bud? Let me know.
uh started off very red hot week one. I went 7-1. The past 2 weeks has been really up and down. Last minute losses. I went 3-5 in both weeks overall. So I'm 13-11. Not too happy, not too bad, but it's still a lot of football left.
Yeah,
14 weeks
so
in the regular season. So
I'll tell you, I went 8-0 this week. Um,
amazing,
most of my
amazing.
leagues, most of my leagues are 2-1. I got one league that I'm 3-0 in, so I'm doing pretty well this
Uh,
season so far. So
Three
far,
and 8-0 in 1 week, man. That's a beautiful thing. I was riding high at 7-1 week
I'll
one,
take it.
so I
I'll
know how
take
you feel right now.
it.
I
I'll
know how
take
you
it.
feel, man. That,
So
that's a good way to start.
we had a lot going on in the league this week, and a lot of stuff
Mm.
that we need to talk about. But first, let's talk about the waiver wire the waiver wire pickups for this week. So who is on your waiver wire? Waiver wires. Most waiver wires run tonight. So set your priority picks tonight. Who are you targeting?
Well, to be honest, the waiver wires is kind of bare. It's kind of bare. So a couple of these guys, I don't know. Well, none of these guys, in my opinion, you're going to pick up and start week four for you, unless you had a major injury in terms of AJ Brown, or you're starting someone like James White, for example. But some of the guys that I like now is, everybody's favorites. They're still living off of 2013 Josh Gordon. He's going with Andy Reid over there in KC. Last time we saw him play in Seattle, he looked pretty good. When he got the ball, he still looked athletic. He looked good. So with
So
Andy Reid and with that offense, I think he might have a little bit of life in him. That says something about McCole Hartman and everybody else over there. They don't believe so much.
what do you make out of the Josh Gordon situation? Like how does that help the Chiefs? Like I
How does
know it's
that?
Josh Gordon, but is it Josh Gordon? Is it Josh
I
Gordon that we know?
I think just like how he has a name and reputation within the fantasy community, I think he has a name and reputation with the NFL in the NFL circles. So meaning that he's going to get some more attention than a guy like Nicole Hartman. So that might actually help Tyreek. After Tyreek's good week one, they've been keeping someone over the top on him the whole time. So Josh Gordon right now, I think he's going to be able to take a little bit of coverage away from Tyreek, and that might help the team overall because they are lacking behind having Kelsey and Reek. So they need someone else, and he's there to fill it. Whether he becomes a real fantasy threat or is it more beneficial real life, only time could tell.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't know if he's a waiver wire pickup for me this week though. I mean, like you're really throwing it at the win if you're picking up Josh Gordon this week. 'Cause
Hey,
I
like
think
I
I
say,
think
you can't rely on nobody. I'm about to name. You can't
look
rely on nobody.
I think the beneficiary of the Josh Gordon pickup is Tyree Kill. That's the biggest beneficiary because it clears out that side of the field for Tyreek to do all his work, and that's where he's been struggling so far. We're gonna get into that in a second. Who else you got for me?
I have another guy I don't trust, but Peyton Barber. Peyton Barber had listen. When Josh Jacobs went down week one, Chucky basically said that Peyton Barber's looking good, looking good. We didn't see him do much week two, but week three, he ended up becoming a three down back. He got 20 plus carries. He ran for over 100 yards and he caught a few balls as well. So Drake was nowhere to be seen. After halftime, pretty much. So Peyton Barber had two big runs in the overtime session. But the reason why it's not that great of a pick because Josh Jacobs is supposed to be coming back. So, if Josh Jacobs doesn't come back, if he's another game time decision, you have Peyton Barber on your bench from picking him up this week, maybe you might want to go with that flyer. But it's going to be hard to rely because I believe the Raiders play on Monday night. So it's going to be tough to rely on it. But hey, like I said, the waiver wire right now is pretty thin, to say the least.
I'm not picking up Peyton Barber just off the fact that that's how bad the waiver wire is this week. But it's just I don't know, I don't know if Josh Jacobs is going to be back. Like you said, it's a Monday night game. I'm not confident in picking up Peyton Barber until I have some more clarity on Josh Jacobs. But if you picked him up this week, you got good output for this week. I know a lot of people need RB2s, so good for you. I got a couple this week. If you are looking for a tight end, Tyler Conklin is somebody that I'm looking at. It seems like Minnesota's looking to get him involved in the offense. You know that they're going to be throwing the ball in Minnesota, even with Dalvin Cook involved in the offense. I think it makes sense if you need somebody because we know how awful tight end is. Tyler Conklin looks like somebody that may be productive at the position. The other person I'm looking at is probably a wide receiver flex for you, and that's Chester Rogers. He looks to have taken over that wide receiver 3 position in Tennessee. And with A.J. Brown out, he could get a lot more volume in that Tennessee offense as a wide receiver 3 for your fantasy lineup or flex if you need one. And then the other one I had was Olamide Zaccheaus for Atlanta. That's how bad it is.
You're going deep.
I'm going deep on the waiver wire. Olamide Zaccheaus, he did score a touchdown in the game against the Giants. And with Russell Gage dealing with injury, he looks like somebody that Matt Ryan wants to get involved in the offense, opposite of Calvin Ridley. So those are my 3 this week. I don't have any running backs. I mean, if you need a flyer, I would say maybe Jeremy McNichols for Tennessee. They could look to get him involved more in the passing game with A.J. Brown, looking like he's going to be out. So that's pretty much all that I have for this week. Anybody else for you?
I have 2 more, but only would just talk about one of them. It was Royce Freeman and Quintus Cephas. I think Royce Freeman. Last year, we know that Carolina went with Mike Davis in the wake of the CMC injury, but I don't know if they're going to go with a running back by committee this time around. Chubba's a rookie. I don't know if he's ready to handle the 100% workload that CMC was getting or Mike Davis was getting last year. Royce Freeman, they picked him up late during the offseason, and he might be able to be someone that, just pick up. You pick him up this week, see what happens, see the workload that he has compared to Chubba, and you could go from there. You could pick him up this week, might drop him after the week, but pick him up before it's too late, Maybe he might have a big role.
We're forgetting to state the obvious too. If Trevor Hubbard is out there, that's your number 1 waiver wire pick. Everybody.
Yeah, I figured that he's in Yahoo leagues. He's owning over 60% of leagues, so he was off my list of people to go after.
Yeah, but if he's out there, you go pick him up tomorrow. Everybody knows C-Mac is injured, so Trevor Hubbard should be the number 1 by far if you need somebody. So that's it for our waiver wire pickups. Let's get into our next topic, and that's going to be what QBs are you streaming this week for week 3? What matchups are you looking at?
I'm looking at Joe Burrow versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Joe Burrow's been having a sneaky good season. He has 7 touchdowns in the first 3 weeks. He's gone against a weak defense over there. He has the weapons with Higgins, Chase, and Boyd. He has Mixon out the backfield. Mixon hasn't been too great, but he has the weapons, and he's going against a weak defense. So this is the perfect medicine to get this offense rolling even more. They had a good week this past week getting the W. So I think it's going to continue on with Joe Burrow. And another one, Tyler Heineke against Atlanta. Atlanta is always the get right defense. It helps everybody get back on their footing. He's and the 2 weeks that Tyler Heineke started, he gave over 23 points each week, subbing in for Fitzpatrick. So against Atlanta, don't expect anything less. So 23 points from, if you're streaming quarterbacks, you could get 23 points from him, you'll be happy.
Yeah, I like those two picks. And Heineke was going to be one of my picks as well because I think the matchup is just that good. And let's not act like Washington doesn't have Terry McLaurin on the other side and Antonio Gibson that he can throw the ball to.
And Logan Thomas.
Yeah, and Logan Thomas too. That's right. My two for this week were Sam Darnold against Dallas. With Christian McCaffrey out, I think they're going to have to utilize Sam Darnold a lot more. We just saw Jalen Hurts, even in garbage time, put up, 25, 26 points last week. So I think if you're looking for somebody, and I do think Carolina's going to be playing from behind in this one. I know Carolina might be the favorites. They're 3-0, but let's not act like Christian McCaffrey is still in that backfield. So I think they're going to utilize Sam Darnold a lot more. And then my other one is, this is going to stink, but Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett is going against the Indianapolis Colts. Indianapolis has looked terrible. I don't know what's going on with their offense or defense. And I think Jacoby
And it's a revenge game. It's a revenge game for him, too.
Yeah, you could count it as a revenge game. But I will say, Jacoby surprised me against the Raiders last week. He did far better than I expected. And I can only expect him to do better with more prep time against Indianapolis next week. So I'm going with Jacoby Brissett and Sam Darnold for next week. And Sam Darnold, I think Sam Darnold's top 10 this year so far.
Sam Darnold has looked good. He has looked good.
Sam Darnold's top 10 this week. So if they are out there, make sure that if you have a quarterback where the matchup is bad or the quarterback you drafted to be your number one quarterback is underperforming, go out and check out those picks. I think that they're going to have some pretty good weeks this week. So our next topic, Bud, is how are we approaching RBBCs? So if you drafted a running back that's in an RBBC right now, how are you approaching that situation?
If you have a running back by committee situation, the first thing when I do draft a running back that is in the timeshare, I play in a lot of PPR leagues. So the first thing I'm looking for is which one is the pass catcher in the committee. He tends to be the one that I'm looking for in the committee. And secondly, the next thing I want to figure out is who's the goal line back. Is that guy, the pass catcher, also getting the goal line carries? But I try to avoid when I'm looking into an RBBC situation is the running back that doesn't catch the balls, but is the main guy just between the 20s. Because those guys, if they're just getting the carries between the 20s, that guy could go 13 for 55, have a 4.5 yards per carry, but they only gave you 5.5 points. So you want a guy that's going to get you the carries, or at least get you the catches and the goal line carries in a RBBC situation. Those are the type of players I'm looking for. Before the injury, a great one was always James White. He's the prototypical guy in a situation like that. He gets all the catches. He does see goal line work. He sees red zone work. So that's what I look for when I'm looking for a person in the committee. And most teams are in the committee at this point, too. It's hard to find a bell cow.
Yeah, so do you own any running backs right now that are in RBBC?
Well, I owned a couple of shares of James White, and he went down with an unfortunate injury, which hurts. I have a Javonte Williams. I have a lot of shares of him. I have a lot of shares of Tyson Williams, who did not look good this past week, did not get much carries. It's hard to deal with these RBBCs because you don't know how the coaching staff feels one week. Tyson looked good the first 2 weeks, and he only got 5 carries this past week. So you don't know what is going on over there and how they feel about him. Another thing to look for when it's RBBCs is, are they able to pass protect? Because if they're not able to pass protect, then they're not going to end up seeing the field too much. And I think that's the situation with Tyson Williams.
So let's talk about Denver real quick, because I think Denver is the prototypical RBBC that we're looking at, where both running backs are getting 50-50 split, just about. And I think that's the RBBC that you want to own, is the one where they're getting a 50-50 split. They're getting equal touches. There's not one that's being taken off the field in certain situations. I think Javonte and Melvin Gordon are both being played in passing down situations and in running down situations. It just matters.
And in the goal line situation.
Right, in the goal line situation. So that's like the perfect RBBC for you to own. And then you have the Baltimore situation. It's like you don't know who's going to get the carries in the Baltimore offense right now. So it's kind of complicated on predicting, when Tyson is going to get his touches, when Latavius is going to get his touches. Unfortunately, it looks like Latavius is going to be the main back for Baltimore, but Tyson is the more explosive back.
Unfortunately, that's what it looks like so far.
Yeah. So the one I'm looking at is, of course, my favorite, Tampa Bay. and I told you, I haven't been on since I told you this, but I told you Ronald Jones was going to fumble. And what did I say? I'm not starting Leonard Fournette until Ronald Jones fumbles. Now, Leonard Fournette had a bad week this weekend, but Leonard Fournette is the back that you want to own in that RBBC. But that's just off of knowing the offense, knowing the coaching style. Once Ronald Jones fumbles, he's in the doghouse. I'm not starting him again. So Leonard Fournette is the one that I want to own out of that backfield right now, even though Giovanni Bernard got the touches in the game against the Rams because they were down. But how often do we expect Tampa Bay to be down in games throughout the year?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So Leonard Fournette.
And besides Rojo fumbling, he hasn't looked good even when he got the opportunities. I think Leonard Fournette, he may not have the best excuse me. He may not have the best hands, but he's the most dependable one out the three in that backfield. But I think he's still a little bit touchdown dependent to give you double digits, just because they don't run the ball a lot over there.
Yeah.
But in an RBBC situation, he's the one to own. I agree.
I say this with Tampa Bay. You got to look at the guy that Tom Brady pats on the back of the helmet. That's the one that's going to get the most carries. Like, no matter what Leonard Fournette does, Tom Brady always goes up to him and gives him love. He could, take it 1 yard and Tom Brady's giving him love.
That's his guy.
Yeah, that's his guy. The other one I'm looking at is the Colts backfield. And those are two startable options regardless of any game, because Nyheim Hines is going to get touches. Jonathan Taylor is going to get touches. Now, Jonathan Taylor may not be the running back that we were expecting to be in the beginning of the year.
The first round draft pick.
Right.
Might not be that.
We're going to talk about that in a second. But both are startable options week to week. I think you can put Nyheim Hines in the flex. You can put him as your RB2 because he's explosive. He's getting the touches that warrant startable running backs in fantasy. So both of those
I agree.
are. Yeah.
Nyheim Hines is equivalent to the way I viewed James White. He's that type of running back. He's going to get he's going to get 6-7 targets out the backfield, catch 4 or 5 balls, and he's going to get you double digit points. It may not be, he may get you 11, 12 points, and if he falls in the end zone, it might be solid low end RB1 numbers for 18, 19 points. But he's going to get you that solid points if you're just looking for a nice floor.
New James White. We'll call him New James White.
The new James White.
All right, so
NJW.
That wraps up the RBBCs. Let's talk about this is a crucial topic. So, analyzing our drafts. In week 3, we get to a point where we want to analyze our drafts. What mistakes did we make? What picks did we hit on? What are you looking at from your draft? Where did you go wrong in your draft, and where do you think that you went right?
I want to start where I did not go right enough, in my opinion. He was drafted relatively high, but not as high as he's looking right now. Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is a league winner right now. He's definitely looking like a league winner. He was drafted in the 3rd, 4th round. Him and Stafford, that connection is amazing right now. That's really actually hurting Bobby Trees right now. His value is big time. So Cooper Kupp is definitely looking like a steal for anybody who drafted him at any point in the draft right now. He's looking like the steal of the draft. Another guy that's a steal as well, Mike Williams. on not San Diego, LA Chargers. Now he was a double-digit round pick, like a 10th, between 9th and 11th rounds. He never lived up to his potential before, and I think now with Justin Herbert, Herbert's being able to throw that rock deep. Used to have Keenan Allen underneath, catching everything, taking a lot of the focus always. So that leaves Mike Williams with his on one-on-one out on the outside with the jump balls. The only thing that was always holding Mike Williams was injuries, and through 3 weeks, he's looking like a superstar to me. Those are the two guys that I think if you drafted him, you're in really good shape so far for the first 3 weeks of your season. Who you got that you like so far?
So the one player that I drafted that I really like, and I got him in 3 leagues, is DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore has far exceeded his draft position right now. He looks to be like he's Sam Darnold's favorite target. He's being heavily involved in the offense, unlike he was last year in the beginning of the year. So I like his utilization in that offense, and I hope that he can continue doing what he's doing. The second one that I think that I did well on was Rob Gronkowski. I know that, like the value that you got Gronk at in your draft, like almost like round 10, sometimes round 11, and he's putting up like top 5 tight end numbers right now. So I think like hitting on Gronk, I got Gronk in I think 2 or 3 leagues. So being able to hit on Gronk was a big one for me as well. I just hope that he can stay healthy.
I will say that I was very low on Gronk. I did not think much about Gronk. I have 0 shares of Gronk, and I'm totally wrong about Gronk. So I'm willing to admit that, and I'm disappointed that I wasn't thinking.
Like I said, but like I said, it's about knowing the offense and knowing Brady's favorites. Gronk is always going to be one of Brady's favorites. So as long as he can stay healthy, he's going to be involved in the offense.
Yeah, he's turning out to be a top tight end, and he looks like the New England Gronk. I think last year is the reason why a lot of people were off Gronk. That he had a year off, and then all that. So I think that's the reason why.
So tell me, what did you miss on? What picks did you miss on?
I would say that I missed on. I wouldn't say I missed because I didn't draft this guy, but a guy who's not living up to his draft stock is JT Jonathan Taylor. That he had a good week 1, solid week 1, nothing too spectacular, but he's disappeared the last 2 weeks. Nyheim Hines, as you stated earlier, is a guy that you could own. Jonathan Taylor being a guy who was drafted in the mid to late first round, and to be in that RBBC situation is not ideal for someone you drafted so early. That's someone that, excuse me, that's someone that, I'm sure a lot of the owners are not very happy to see Nyheim Hines getting all those catches out the backfield. They wish that Jonathan Taylor was more of the 3-down back like he was late last season. Another one that was drafted relatively high and has been disappointing is Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders was, going as a high-end RB2 in the 3rd, 4th round, and he had a good week 1. And just yesterday, as we saw, he got 2 carries. So Philly's a mess right now. I'm not sure what's going on with the coaching situation 3 weeks in, but he, is a tough situation with over there, and you still want to have Jalen Hurts that's going to be taking some carries away. So right now, Miles Sanders had a good week 1. The last 2 weeks have been shaky at best for him.
Yeah, those are 2 good ones, and we'll talk about them again in a second as well. One for me, and this is like the dreaded having the number 1 pick. Like I hate having the number 1 pick, and it's C-Mac. It's like I always want to go against the grain with the number 1 pick because I did not want to pick C-Mac, and I picked C-Mac, and look where I am now. But C-Mac is one that I should have been cautious about because of the injury history, and I still was like, okay, he's going to come back healthy, and now look where we are. He has a hamstring. We don't know when he's coming back. So C-Mac is one that I just completely missed on, which I'm sure everybody who had the number 1 pick did as well.
Yeah, it's also hard to, when you have the number 1 picks, the consensus number 1, no brainer pick is C-Mac. It's hard to be the guy that says, I'm going against the grain and try and outsmart everybody. It's a tough situation to be in, to try to be that guy to say, hey, I'm going to go against the grain and take Dalvin Cook or someone number 1 as opposed to C-Mac. Is tough.
Yeah, so C-Mac is one, and then CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is another one. I thought this being his second year, having more experience in the NFL, he was it was gonna click for him this year in that offense. And we saw flashes in the last game, but it just has not looked pretty with CEH. And he's having the fumbling issues, so you're kind of like, how much longer are they gonna stick with CEH? What's gonna be his role going forward? Are they going to get Jerick McKinnon more involved eventually? Are they going to continue working with Darrell Williams at the goal line? So that's where, I'm kind of like I messed up with that CEH pick, even though he's not my number 1 pick in some of my drafts, but I picked him very high and very early, and I think that's where I went wrong. Shout out to Hill. Hill said Robbie Anderson. Yeah, Robbie Anderson has not looked good.
Yeah, I was when you brought up DJ Moore and how you like that pick. Robbie Anderson is the guy who's actually hurting right now because of DJ Moore's love affair with Sam Darnold.
It's not too late.
Robbie Anderson is for Hill. Robbie Anderson could almost put him at the end of your bench. He might be almost cuttable soon.
Nah, it's not too late for Robbie Anderson. Nah, I'm not.
It's only 3 weeks. I said put him at the end of your bench.
Right.
You invested a high draft pick. You're not gonna drop him so soon. But
I don't think he's gonna have the utilization that he had last year. But it's not too late for Robbie Anderson. All right.
I agree with that.
So moving on. We just kind of talked about this a little bit. What do we do with struggling wide receiver ones and wide receiver ones and RB ones? So we have a list of wide receiver ones and RB ones. So tell me, who is your first wide receiver on your list?
I have a lot of shares of this guy, and after before week one, I was very, very skeptical that why did I own him so much. After week one, I was like, "Yep, it was a good pick." That's Amari Cooper. I own him in 5 or 6 of my 8 leagues. He had 13 catches week one, balled out of control, amazing. And then the last 2 weeks have been straight duds. He's had 3 catches each of the last 2 weeks. That's not going to cut it for someone who drafted him at the 3-4 turn. That's going as your wide receiver 2, and he's giving you less than 6 points in the past 2 weeks each week. After he gave you 30 the first week, you're excited about this guy, and he has just looked like they're spreading the ball around too much. Dak is making it work out there, but it's he's just too much of a whack-a-mole. Great week one, and if you look at his total points for the season, it's not too bad, but he gave it all in week one, and he's really hurting you right now. Another guy, similar situation, but even higher draft capital. Tyree Kill. I love the guy. Everyone loves him, with the deuces when he scores a touchdown, everything. But I think everybody's making sure that they have someone over the top to protect against it. And he had that good week one. He had 11 for 197 week one. And now he has 70 yards total in the last 2 weeks. So that's not what you expect from a guy who was drafted right behind Devontae Adams, That's not what you want. If he's the number two wide receiver overall that people are drafting, you can't have 70 yards in 2 weeks. That's not going to cut it. And as you see, the way that he's been playing is coincided with the way that Kansas City's been going. They haven't looked good the past 2 weeks either. So those are my 2 wide receivers that are really putting this name of the podcast in question. No Cryin fantasy. They're making me. They start to make my eyes water though.
But here's the thing. So we know that Tyree Kill is going to win you some weeks and he's going to lose you some weeks. That's just a given. Like when you draft Tyreek, you know that.
Boom or bust.
Yeah, he's boom or bust, man. And Amari Cooper, that's just the story of his career. It's like flash in the pan. He's up 1 week, he's down 1 week. Like that's just what you're gonna get. So my two are AJ Brown and Allen Robinson. AJ Brown had a solid week 1. I mean, it wasn't like anything that was stellar, but it was a solid week 1. And then the next week, 7 points, and then injured on the first play in week 3. And we don't know when he's coming back. So, like, I don't know what we do with AJ Brown. You just hold him, you wait. But he has not been performing up to that wide receiver 1 potential that we saw so far. He's not that pick that you picked in the second round to be a wide receiver 1. And then Allen Robinson, I have none of Allen Robinson, but I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people that drafted Allen Robinson as their wide receiver 1, and frankly, I don't want anything to do with Andy Dalton leading my offense or Justin Fields leading my offense right now. So, Allen Robinson.
That situation is. People had a lot of high hopes actually for Chicago, whether it was Darnell Mooney, Allen Robinson, just praying that Justin Fields gets on the field, and so far it's not looking good for them.
Yeah, I liked Darnell Mooney as a flex, but I did not like Allen Robinson as a wide receiver 1. I mean, his points total so far 9, 10, and 4. That's not a wide receiver 1. that these are PPR numbers. These are not standard numbers.
Oh man!
I mean, the offense put up 68 yards of offense last week. So this is not an offense that you want to buy into. So AJ Brown and Allen Robinson, they are not your wide receiver 1s that you thought they were going to be so far this year. All right, what about running backs?
I think I touched on it. Jonathan Taylor, that he's been horrible. He hasn't been looking the way that we expect. Him and Miles Sanders, those are the two guys again. It goes hand in hand with the topic. But overall, in my opinion, you have Zeke, who had a good week, bounce back week. But 1 good week out of 3, we can't let him off the hook. And we can't have the recency bias because it was just more recent and it was just yesterday. But he had 2 bad weeks, and Pollard was eating into his carries and eating into his looks. So he can't be totally off the hook yet. That's another name that I would like to throw out there.
Yeah. Sanders is one that, like, I don't know what's going on with that offense. 2 carries last night. Like, it's not an offense that seems to be clicking. It's not an offense that seems to know exactly what the game plan is. And
they have no identity.
Yeah, it just seems like I don't know what the coach is doing. I'll just put it like that, because they weren't even down big in the game and they abandoned the run. And he averaged 13 yards a carry. Like that's how bad it was. So I don't know about Miles Sanders at all. So Hill said week 2 was bad. I don't know if you're talking about Miles Sanders, Hill, but his week 2 was 6 points. He had 8 points last night and 17 in week 1. So Miles Sanders is not running back 1, barely a running back 2 for your team right now. My 2 picks were Christian McCaffrey, which we already talked about. I mean, Christian McCaffrey lit it up weeks 1 and 2, and then goes down first quarter with a hamstring injury. So now you're just in a wait-and-see approach with Christian McCaffrey. And then the other one is Saquon. I think we all knew that Saquon was going to kind of start off slow, but he was still being drafted in the first round, and he's not a guy that has won you many weeks. Last week was good. It was a good indicator of maybe what he can do. It was also against the Atlanta Falcons, so I'm not putting too much stock into it. But if you look at his schedule eases up a little bit. I think he was against 3 top 5 defenses in the first week. So his schedule should get easier, and he should be able to put up more numbers. But right now, Saquon is not that person that you drafted to lead your team. So Hill said Zeke. Let's look at let's look at Zeke's week 2 numbers. 5 points in week 1, 17 in week 2, 26 in week 3. So week 3 is definitely by far the best week. 17 in week 2 isn't bad. It was a pretty good week.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I think the concern was that is what we saw in Pollard. I think Pollard started getting a lot more touches. People were a little bit scared of, is Zeke going to be the bell cow and Pollard just spell him? But Pollard looked like he was going to take a little bit more carries than just be a spell back. And I don't think that he's totally out the woods. I think if you have Zeke, you feel comfortable with it. But let's not. I just said let's keep an eye on Zeke. Let's keep an eye on Zeke and make sure that situation he holds on to it completely. And he had that bad week 1 that was on prime time. That was a solo game. So he had 2 bounce back weeks, but Pollard is still looking solid.
Yeah, Zeke.
I know that's Hill's guy.
That's Hill's guy.
That's
Zeke,
Hill's guy. So
Zeke hasn't been that bad. But the other ones are pretty bad right now as your RB1s. But
yep.
I think that's all we got for week 3, bud. So
yep.
We'll be back week 4.
Week 4.
Yeah.
I might not be able to be here next week. I'm getting married next week, so
congrats, man.
It's a little hectic. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. But so I'm going to be watching the games, still following, making sure that everything is copacetic. Hopefully, I'm better than 3-5 next week, and hopefully you could go 8-0 again, unless you're playing me in a couple leagues. But
I'm trying to go 8-0 again.
That gives credibility to what you say when you go 8-0. I lose credibility at 3-5, so I understand that. I understand the nature of the beast.
We have bad weeks.
Yeah,
but
it's still early in the season. Still ability. Everyone still has a chance to make right, even if you're 0-3. It's a long season, 14 weeks. I think to be safe, make sure that you win 8 games to get into your playoffs. So you still have a lot of time, and fantasy, a lot of things can happen. It's week to week. And one thing I want to say before we get off, it's only been 3 weeks. Don't pull the plug on your studs yet.
That's a good
one. Your wide receiver ones, your running back ones, don't pull the plug on them yet. You drafted them high for a reason. They have that pedigree. They have that resume. Assess your team after week 5. At that point, you could really, really say, okay, maybe I should make a trade. Maybe I should pull the plug on this guy. But right now, hold tight and believe in who you drafted.
Yep, I agree with you, bud. Well, that's it for There's No Cryin in Fantasy. Week 3 is in the bag. We'll be back for week 4. I'll be back for week 4. We'll probably have another host for next week. But bud, I'll see you soon. Congrats again.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. We out.